Good evening and welcome to Freedom is a Constant Struggle with your host Kilu Nyasha, and board hopping is Jackie Perez. My guest Robin Roth is here to talk about Hep C, but before we go there, May 19th, as you know, is the birthday of three giant freedom fighters. Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, Yuri Kochiyama, and Ho Chi Minh. Let's celebrate their incredible lives and contributions to our international revolutionary struggle. May 19th, 1925 is the birth date of Malcolm X, as he is commonly known. However, he did change his name to El Haj Malik El Shabazz, the titles resulting from having made the pilgrimage to Mecca in the Muslim tradition. Here are some quotes that clarify his philosophical and political change as he continued to grow. And Jackie, you can share some pictures of Yuri and Ho and Uncle Ho, as we used to call him, and Malcolm, as I continue to share some quotes. Of course, once Malcolm became international in practice, he also became a serious threat in the eyes of the ruling elites. And he was martyred, of course, in 1965. Other martyrs included Fred Hampton, George Jackson, Martin Luther King Jr., and Marilyn Buck, and many others. Quote, "I am not a racist. I am against every form of racism and segregation, every form of discrimination. I believe in human beings, and that all human beings should be respected as such, regardless of their color. In the past, I permitted myself to be used to make sweeping indictments of all white people, the entire white race. And these generalizations have caused injuries to some whites who perhaps did not deserve to be hurt. Because of the spiritual enlightenment which I was blessed to receive as a result of my recent pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, I no longer subscribe to sweeping indictments of any one race. I am now striving to live the life of a true Muslim. I must repeat that I'm not a racist, nor do I subscribe to the tenets of racism. I can state in all sincerity that I wish nothing but freedom, justice, and equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all people. I would add that since the genome breakthrough of 2000, we now know there is only one race, the human race. Of course, that awareness doesn't eliminate racism, but it does prove conclusively that we are 99.9% the same and our differences are ethnic and cultural. Here's a clip of Malcolm from his speech, "The Ballot or the Bullet." Stay tuned as we load that up.
Why does this loom to be such an explosive political year? Because this is the year of politics. This is the year when all of the white politicians are going to come into the Negro community. You never see them until election time. You can't blame them until election time. They're going to come in with false promises. And as they make these false promises, they're going to feed our frustrations. And this will only serve to make matters worse. I'm no politician. I'm not even a student of politics. I'm not a Republican, nor a Democrat, nor an American, and got sense enough to know it. I'm one of the 22 million black victims of the Democrats. One of the 22 million black victims of the Republicans, and one of the 22 million black victims of Americanism. And when I speak, I don't speak as a Democrat or a Republican. I speak as a victim of America's so-called democracy. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism, We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. If you go to jail, so what? If you're black, you were born in jail. If you black, you were born in jail. In the North as well as the South. Stop talking about the South. Long as you're south of the Canadian border, you're South. Don't call Governor Wallace a Dixie governor. Romney is a Dixie governor. $22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. They see that the whites are so evenly divided that every time they vote, the race is so close they have to go back and count the votes all over again. And which means that any block, any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You can keep Johnson in Washington, D.C., or you can send him back to his Texas cotton patch. You're the one who sent Kennedy to Washington. You're the one who put the present Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. The whites were evenly divided. It was the fact that you threw 80% of your votes behind the Democrats that put the Democrats in the White House. When you see this, you can see that the Negro vote is the key factor. And despite the fact that you are in a position to be the determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last. Because you're a chump. A political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you back controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you, because you're a chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race. And what kind of alibi do they come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Dixiecrats. Now, back during the days when you were blind, deaf, and dumb, ignorant, politically immature, naturally you went along with that. But today, as your eyes come open and you develop political maturity, you're able to see and think for yourself. And you can see that a Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat in disguise. You look at the structure of the government that controls this country. It's controlled by 16 senatorial committees and 20 congressional committees. Of the 16 senatorial committees that run the government, 10 of them are in the hands of Southern segregationists. Of the 20 congressional committees that run the government, 12 of them are in the hands of Southern segregationists. And they're going to tell you and me that the South lost the war. You today are in the hands of a government of segregationists, racists, white supremacists, who belong to the Democratic Party but disguise themselves as Dixiecrats. A Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat. Whoever runs the Democrats is also the father of the Dixiecrats. And the father of all of them is sitting in the White House. I say, and I say it again, you got a president who's nothing but a Southern segregationist. From the state of Texas. They'll lynch you in Texas as quick as they'll lynch you in Mississippi. Only in Texas, they lynch you with a Texas accent. In Mississippi, they lynch you with a Mississippi accent. And the first thing the cracker does when he comes in power, he takes all the Negro leaders and invites them for coffee to show that he's all right. And those Uncle Toms can't pass up the coffee. They come away from the coffee table telling you and me that this man is all right. Because he's from the South. And since he's from the South, he can deal with the South. And look at the logic that they're using. What about Eastland? He's from the South. Make him the president. If Johnson is a good man because he's from Texas, and being from Texas will enable... If Johnson is a good man because he's from Texas, and being from Texas will enable him to deal with the South, Eastland can deal with the South better than Johnson. Say you've been misled, you've been had, you've been took. I was in Washington a couple of weeks ago while the senators were filibustering, and I noticed in the back of the Senate a huge map. And on this map, it showed the distribution of Negroes in America. And surprisingly, the same senators that were involved in the filibuster were from the states where there were the most Negroes. Why were they filibustering the civil rights legislation? Because the civil rights legislation is supposed to guarantee voting rights to Negroes in those states. And those senators from those states know that if the Negroes in those states can vote, those senators are down the drain. The representatives of those states go down the drain. And in the Constitution of this country, it has a stipulation wherein whenever the rights, the voting rights of people in a certain district are violated, then the representative who's from that particular district, according to the Constitution, is supposed to be expelled from the Congress. Now, if this particular aspect of the Constitution was enforced, why, you wouldn't have a cracker in Washington, D.C. But what would happen when you expel the Dixiecrat? You're expelling the Democrat. When you destroy the power of the Dixiecrat, you're destroying the power of the Democratic Party. So how in the world can the Democratic Party in the South actually side with you in sincerity when all of its power is based in the South? These Northern Democrats are in cahoots with the Southern Democrats. They're playing a giant con game, a political con game. You know how it goes. One of them comes to you and make believe he's for you. And he's in cahoots with the other one that's not for you. Why? Because neither one of them is for you. But they got to make you go with one of them or the other. So this is a con game. And this is what they've been doing with you and me all these years. First thing Johnson got off the plane when he became president, he asked, "Where's Dickie?" You know who Dickie is? Dickie is old Southern cracker Richard Russell. Look here. Yes. Lyndon B. Johnson's best friend is the one who is ahead, who's heading the forces that are filibustering civil rights legislation. You tell me, how in the hell is he going to be Johnson's best friend? How can Johnson be his friend and your friend too? No, that man is too tricky, especially if his friend is still old Dickie. Whenever the Negroes keep the Democrats in power, they're keeping the Dixiecrats in power. This is true. A vote for a Democrat is nothing but a vote for a Dixiecrat. I know you don't like me saying that, but I'm not the kind of person who come here to say what you like. I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not. Up here in the North, you have the same thing. The Democratic Party don't do it. They don't do it that way. They got a thing that they call gerrymandering. They maneuver you out of power. Even though you can vote, they fix it so you're voting for nobody. They got you going and coming. In the South, they're outright political wolves. In the North, they're political foxes. A fox and a wolf are both canine. Both belong to the dog family.
And that was Malcolm X breaking it down, and it's so appropriate. What is it? 50 years later?
Yep.
52 years later. It's very appropriate because the gerrymandering and redistricting,
Still happening.
and the denial of votes, the
Yep.
voting rights, nonsense. They're still
And
doing
with the
it.
special on Johnson coming up, very timely.
Very timely, exactly. But well, that's why they cut him down and didn't let him make it to 40 years old. But he would be 91 today if he were alive, and it's a sin and a shame that we lost him so young.
Yeah.
My guest is Robin Roth, a founder and current co-chair of the San Francisco Hepatitis C Task Force. She is a steering committee member of the California Hepatitis Alliance. And cured of hepatitis C in 2002, Robin has gratefully given back with her Self-Care for Hepatitis C Meditations Guide, available free at hepcmeditations.org. That's hepcmeditations, all one word, .org. A longtime faculty member of City College of San Francisco, Robin will be teaching a short-term course, Hepatitis ABCs, next fall on 3 Saturdays. Register at www.ccsf.edu. That's ccsf.edu. She also created the Women's Health Issues course, the HIV prevention program, and has taught human sexuality, health and aging, harm reduction, and related courses. A strong advocate for Hep C testing, treatment, and cures for all, Robin comes this Thursday, May 19th, directly from a National Hepatitis Day event at Mission Wellness Pharmacy, which is offering free Hep C testing Monday through Saturday from now through June at 2424 Mission Street. And what's the cross street?
It's near 20th, between 20th and 20th
And
first.
so
Yeah.
the BART will get you there, either
Absolutely.
at 24th Street stop or the 16th.
Any mission bus.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Very
So,
available.
Great. So welcome. And I made a few notes about hepatitis C, and I'll just share it a little bit before.
Sure.
A disease which the cure is available but priced out of reach for most of the 3.5 million people in the U.S. who have it, especially prisoners, for whom Hep C can result from unsterilized needles in medical care, tattooing, or other forms of contact. Our comrade brother Mumia Abu-Jamal is suffering from this curable illness for lack of treatment. And here to discuss this is our Robin Roth.
Okay.
So,
And actually, it's way more than 3.2 million
Is it?
people in the United States who
Oh.
have that. That is sort of an official
Oh, okay.
number, but even the officials say that that's a real underestimate. It's much likely more like 5 million, 7 million. We really don't have good, what they call surveillance, good statistics.
Is that largely because so many are in prison?
Well, that 3.2 million figure was sort of extrapolated from a study that had nothing to do with hepatitis C, was just on various health factors, and it did exclude prisoners,
Okay.
homeless people, the military, people in nursing homes. I mean, it
Right.
excluded a whole
A
lot
lot
of
of folks.
people. Yeah.
And the very people who are likely to get it because of, you know, unclean needles in medical care and so
Yeah,
on.
and so many factors. Hepatitis C is the most common bloodborne disease in the United States, and it's an unfortunately robust virus that's transmitted very easily, 10 times more infectious than HIV, lives for a long time on surfaces, so it lives for weeks in a syringe or cotton. It's not just syringes and needles that
Oh,
can
really?
transmit.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
and so that's an important message to get out. HIV advocates and syringe access sites have been really good at getting out that message of using a new syringe and needle. But for hepatitis C, the message has been expanded. Don't share anything. In
Right.
fact, we learned from the King community who started the slogan, "Don't share a bloody thing." However, you don't have to, you probably won't see the blood. A microscopic amount can still have millions of particles.
Oh.
So it is very easily spread. Today, hepatitis C is causing more deaths than there's 60 reportable infectious diseases the CDC keeps track of, and hepatitis C is causing more deaths than the other 59 reportable infectious diseases combined.
Oh my goodness.
And that includes HIV. The death rate is, for people who are who are hepatitis C positive, is 12 times that of the general population. It's a very serious illness, though it's a slow illness, and it's a symptomless illness until your liver is really in very bad shape. And so the majority of people who are infected with hepatitis C don't know that they're infected, which means they can't get treatment, and they don't know to take measures to prevent transmitting it to other people.
Right.
The really incredible thing, and the good news, is that this is the first virus that medical science has been able to kill. This is now a curable disease.
Right.
And as of the last year or so, there's even a treatment that usually only takes 12 weeks, has little or very few side effects, and is incredibly effective. And that word hasn't gotten out quite enough either, because the previous treatment, the treatment that I did, and I was very fortunate that it was effective with me, but it was only about 50% effective, and you had to do it for a year, and it had like pretty horrendous side effects that many people couldn't tolerate. So this is a whole new world. We can eliminate hepatitis C, and in fact that is the goal from the World Hepatitis Alliance and the UN's World Health Organization, to eliminate hepatitis C by 2030 as a public health threat. However, there's a lot that stands in between us
Right, and
and achieving that.
I understand the medications are extremely expensive.
Yes, it's very unfortunate, but the medications are well, most people have heard of the $1,000 a pill treatment, which Sovaldi is. But it really should be said that no one is paying that. Okay, nobody can afford to pay $94,000 out of pocket for a treatment. But that being this sort of rack price, even though most insurance companies, the VA, other organizations have gotten discounts, it still makes it very expensive. And so, and of course, Medicare is not allowed to negotiate for discounts by law.
That's crazy.
Yes, that is. That's something that needs to be changed for so
whole
many
health,
reasons.
We know the whole health system needs to be changed.
Absolutely. And insurance companies, they don't want to pay for this. Maybe this person, if they live long enough, if they don't get end-stage liver disease, liver cancer, or, need a transplant, and hepatitis C is the leading cause for liver transplants. And, more people die on the liver transplant list than actually get a liver. But, maybe they won't be in that insurance company anymore. Maybe they've gone to Medicare or Medicaid. So there's a lot of shuffling of the buck. But I think because of hepatitis C advocacy, we are seeing changes.
Well, if I may ask, how did you go about getting your treatment?
Well, I was surprised to find that I had hepatitis C, though looking back on it, I had a number of risk factors. But I had just gone for a routine doctor's exam, and because I taught at City College of San Francisco, and I was teaching in the HIV peer education program, and we had lost one of our peer educators, Gil Roa, to honor him, to hepatitis C, and another peer educator had to get a liver transplant. I kind of knew about it. And so when I was, at this routine exam, I was like, test me for everything and test me for all the hepatitises. I was still, kind of surprised to find out that I did have hepatitis C because I had no symptoms whatsoever. Uh-huh. And a couple years later, when I really wanted to, know, well, what is the status of my liver? How am I doing? Because I figured it had been several decades since I had gotten infected. I was really surprised, and my doctor was very shocked to find out I had cirrhosis already. I was in the early stages of cirrhosis.
Cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah, which is a very serious illness.
You only get one liver.
You only get one liver. It does over 500 different functions for us. You cannot live without a liver.
Right.
We don't really think about the liver too much. A lot of people would be hard put to, where is their liver, But we absolutely rely on it. And it's a hard-working organ. It's almost unfortunate that it doesn't complain, because then maybe people would know that there was a problem. But
I've never heard of liver pain.
No, you rarely have liver pain, but people do have fatigue.
Right.
People get fatigue. People get what we call brain fog. A little cloudy in the mind, or maybe you forget something, or. Doesn't that sound like so many other diseases? So people get told, you're getting older, or are you under stress? Yeah, we're all under stress. Or if you're a woman, and like, well, maybe it's menopause, or so there is a real push on many parts of the medical profession to start doing more testing, but that really seriously needs to be ramped up.
Right. People
it's been very
lacking.
lacking.
And how is it tested? Through urine?
It's a
urine
very
analysis, or
no.
blood?
It's a very simple test. So I've been all day on Mission Street, a little bit up and down Mission Street, in front of Mission Wellness Pharmacy, which is really doing a wonderful job of offering free testing and linkage to care.
And how is the test?
The test is a
Administered?
finger prick. So you just, they prick your finger, get that drop of blood, and they test for antibodies. So if you are antibody positive, that means you've been exposed to hepatitis C. However, many people do clear the virus on their own, spontaneous clearance, self-resolve. So if that antibody test is positive, then you do need to get a second test that actually looks for the virus. That's also a blood test. None of this is painful in any way. And then that confirmatory viral load test will tell you if there is any active virus.
I see.
And many studies now, recent studies, have shown that it is not only healthier to treat people right away, it is cost effective to treat people right away. But unfortunately, instead, across the country, it varies from state to state, people are being denied treatment.
Right.
Until they are seriously ill. Stage 3 and 4, stage 4 being cirrhosis, on liver biopsies or other tests to determine that. And sometimes it's too late.
What would early treatment consist of?
Okay, well, the treatment, and fortunately now there are a number of different pharmaceutical companies that have developed a treatment, more medications in the pipeline, and this is having the effect of bringing down the price somewhat. So most people will take a pill. Just take a pill once a day. Some of the medications are a couple pills, but even so, very, very easy. And usually...
Are these available through insurance companies now? The pills that you're referring to?
Yes. I mean, it really varies. We at the San Francisco Hepatitis C Task Force, we talk to a lot of people in our area, in California, really from all over. And so it does vary. CalHep, the California Hepatitis Alliance, has been successful with advocacy in getting Medi-Cal to treat stage 2, 3, and 4, which is better than in many parts of the country, though it should be just anyone who has Hep C. But we've also made changes just a year ago. We're hoping for more this year. So that people who are actively doing drugs, women who want to get pregnant, and unfortunately it can be transferred to
the infant,
to
the fetus.
for the fetus. It's only about 5 or 6%, but if you're in that 5 or 6%, and I have known people who have been, it's a terrible tragedy. So it's really been opened up to many people. But previously, unfortunately, it's a stigmatized disease. People get very confused with hepatitis A and hepatitis B, though they're very different, though they all cause inflammation of the liver. That's what they have in common, but they're very different viruses. And because it's currently spread most from intravenous drug use, there's that stigma. There's a horrible epidemic happening now in young people. There's also another mini epidemic happening among HIV positive men who have sex with men. And in fact, hepatitis C is now the leading cause of death for people who are HIV positive.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and about...
So they're surviving HIV and dying of Hep C.
Yes,
Oh, my
unfortunately. I mean, it's partly because there are better treatments making HIV more of a manageable
Right,
disease.
Exactly.
So it's very important to be treated for your Hep C. Very important to be tested. Also, baby boomers make up the bulk of the people with hepatitis C. Okay, there's people who are getting infected now
Right,
that we
yeah,
really
so
want to
I
get the
read
message
that,
to.
yeah.
But the folks born between 1945 and 1965 make up maybe 3/4 of the people who have been living with hepatitis C. Most of them living for a long time, meaning they're getting to the point where their livers are really in trouble.
Kind of coincides with the the whole crack epidemic.
Well, that too, and it's not just intravenous drugs, though of course that's a very efficient way to become infected, but crack pipes
Well, I meant, the cocaine
and
the whole
cocaine.
thing. The whole.
Cocaine abrades the nostrils, and when you pass that dollar bill or $100 bill from one person to the next, there's microscopic amounts of blood. So many people who felt. I remember a woman in a support group I was in who was like, I don't know how I got hepatitis C. I don't do those things. And we went through all the different means of transmission. I'd be happy to go through that here if you'd like.
Also tattooing it.
Oh, yeah. And then when we came to snorting cocaine, she literally fell out of her chair. She's like, what? I could have gotten it that way? Yes. So
Wow.
we have people who are on all walks of life who are infected, and it's really a shame and a disservice that it is so stigmatized, because you will find hepatitis C in every socioeconomic group.
Group.
However, it is really disproportionately affects African Americans, Latinos,
Yeah, well, everything
Native American
disproportionately
Indians.
affects us.
Unfortunately.
But
Yeah.
I want to ask our board op Jackie if she would share with us a commentary from Mumia Abu Jamal, who has contracted not HIV,
Hep C long ago, yes.
hepatitis C,
Please.
and has been suffering. And
Terribly.
while his commentary is playing, you're going to see photographs of. She'll share some photographs of Mumia, and you'll see him a healthy Mumia, and then you'll see how he looks with hepatitis C. And
Yes.
I understand you did visit him, right?
I haven't visited him
Oh, I thought-
personally, but I have been involved, and I know his
Oh, you know
physicians.
his-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are we almost there?
Is there a balm in Gilead? The great black activist and artist, Paul Robeson, in 1958 in Carnegie Hall, sang the gospel song, Balm in Gilead. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. His full, magnificent baritone filled the hall with wonder. His words in song sprung back from over half a century when the news emerged of a big, wealthy pharmaceutical, Gilead Sciences Incorporated, buying the drug sofosbuvir and then tripling its proffered price to treat hundreds of thousands of people suffering from hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is a liver infection which can, untreated, lead to immense suffering and death. Sofosbuvir, sold under the names Harvoni and Sovaldi, is more than a treatment. It is a cure with healing rates over 95%. And it now goes for $1,000 a pill. A full course of treatment, over $100,000. Is there a balm in Gilead? Yup, there is. But only a few can afford it. To quote Paul Robeson, in the words of this cherished Negro spiritual, there is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. But if you can't afford it, you die. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal.
Well,
Yeah, I'm so
very,
worried about
very
Mumia
moving. And
because it's scary. I mean, he's in prison. How's he going to get treatment?
Well, there is a lawsuit trying
Well.
to force treatment for him, and unfortunately, I think if you saw a picture of him today, it would look much worse because,
Even worse?
yeah, because he has a very severe skin disease that the prison doctors are trying to say is not from hepatitis C. It's clearly from hepatitis C. Something we didn't mention is that it doesn't just affect the liver. There are many what are called extrahepatic manifestations. That can cause diabetes, thyroid problems, skin problems, just problems, cognitive problems, mental health problems, just all kinds of problems. So it's really important that it be treated. But, according to recent data from the U.S. Department of Justice, there's 2.2 million people who are incarcerated in the U.S., and the prevalence of hepatitis C is just really high among people who are in prison. The statistics show from 10 to 37%. Actually, I just read a recent report about prison in Tennessee, where 1 out of every 2 prisoners were infected with Hep C.
Right.
I mean, if they don't test, we don't really get the right statistics, so there's always underreporting.
Right.
But, as you know, people are disproportionately incarcerated for low-level drug offenses, and so you do have a lot of people who have had some, high-risk behaviors, injection drug use, unsafe tattooing, which I do want to talk about because if tattooing and piercing can easily transmit the virus if it's not done under really sterile circumstances. So piercing parties and tattooing parties are not a good idea.
Not a great idea.
And there's real concern about manicures and pedicures if the salons are not autoclaving in their instruments, and it's recommended that people bring their own scissors and
I'm not
nail
familiar
files.
with the word you used. Auto.
An autoclave is a medical instrument that uses really high temperatures and steam heat that can kill the Hep C virus, but most nail salons don't have that.
Right.
And so they're using liquids that are just not effective. So you really don't want to have the possibility of anyone else's blood getting into your body, for many reasons, of which Hep C is just one.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So we
really
have
good
this a
information.
lot of people who may have Hep C and don't know it, being imprisoned, and then in prison there's shared needles, shared tattooing equipment, unsafe or coerced sex, shared razors, particularly with people having the shaved head look, other exposure to blood. So it's just rampant
With
in
fights.
prison. And you can really call that cruel and unusual punishment.
It certainly is.
To be given a possibly fatal disease that has nothing to do with whatever you might have been incarcerated
have
for.
done.
Yeah.
Right.
And since over 90% of individuals in jail or prison will be released back into the community in the future, addressing hepatitis C within corrections setting is really crucial because it
Right.
is unknowingly spread.
Right.
And some places are taking steps. In New York, they do inreach in prison. Here we're like always doing outreach to. That's what I was doing
Okay.
today. I was doing outreach
Okay.
to people to let them know. But they do inreach. They have people who are in a transition clinic before they're going to be released, and they get tested and information there. Here in San Francisco, we are there is a study that's going to be started in San Francisco jail that we're sure will prove that people can be successfully treated in prison, and since it's now a 3-month cure, instead of a 1-year cure. Actually, in jail and prison is sort of an ideal time to cure people instead of having people getting infected.
Right, infecting the general population.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least it's somewhat contained.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you know anything about the lawsuit that's been filed by Mumia's
Yeah,
lawyers?
it's like going through the legal chains, and there, you know,
can drag
in
on
Pennsylvania, where he is, as in many states, the health care in prisons is contracted out
Right.
to private companies
Right.
that bid on it, and they say, okay, we're going to spend so much on you know, and they're trying to make a profit,
Of course.
which as we know shouldn't be in healthcare, but there we
I
are.
hate it.
Yeah.
I really hate it.
Um,
The fact
so-
that this is a profit-making healthcare system.
So they don't want to treat people,
Right.
and so they're trying to say, oh no, his hepatitis C it's not bad enough yet. Honestly, that's what they're saying.
Really?
Yeah. Even while he has
Oh.
this life-threatening skin condition, Mumia had
Lost a
was
lot
forced.
of weight.
Oh my goodness! Well, he had diabetes, which is
Which is
a not
another-
uncommon side effect
What a side effect.
of hepatitis C, and his physicians are, you know, very much afraid that he will be thrown back into diabetes. And in Pennsylvania, there is, like, I believe 10,000 prisoners with hepatitis C, and
Oh, my goodness.
over the country, you know, many tens and hundreds of thousands of people who
here's
need to be
something some of
treated.
these multimillionaire celebrities can do,
We
contribute.
unfortunately have not been really successful in getting a hepatitis C champion. We don't have a Magic Johnson or a Rock Hudson, even though many rock stars and musicians and so many people do have hepatitis C. They haven't really come forward, and
'Cause this is just terrible. People are just dying from it, and
yes,
I mean,
yes.
we fought for 30 years to get Mumia off death row to keep him alive, and now he's being threatened. His life is being threatened with a disease that's curable.
That's curable.
It's outrageous.
And it's like incredible. Like I said, the first virus that medical science can cure, and yet it's being held hostage for profits.
Right.
You will remember when Jonas Salk invented the polio
Polio.
vaccine.
Listen, I had a brother who had polio.
Oh, I'm sorry
Yeah.
to hear that. Jonas Salk refused to take out a patent on the vaccine. Many people said, oh, take out a patent, you know, you'll make a fortune. He's like, no, I want this vaccine to be readily available to everyone in the world.
Bless his heart.
The current pharmaceutical companies are not taking that tact, to say the least.
I'm sure.
and-
I'm
and
sure.
many
And
people
the
are
pharmaceuticals,
suffering.
to me, they're criminals. They're the biggest drug pushers on the planet, and they are criminal.
Well, you know, Bernie Sanders and several other senators have called hearings demanding more transparency.
They're killing people. What about this guy?
David
that-
Chu in
what-
our own, you know,
what's that-
legislature is
what's
trying
that
for
horrible
that.
dude that ultimately got arrested for something else, but who had a patent on a medication that was something like
Scalia,
$100.
who like raised the
They
price
jumped it up
enormously.
to
Yeah.
tens of thousands of dollars or something, some insane.
Right. Well, he's just an example, a real egregious example of what so many of the pharmaceutical companies are doing. I was
We
at
have
the
about 2 minutes.
the first ever World Hepatitis Summit last fall in Scotland, and there are companies that are stepping up to make generic versions of these medications, often in agreements with Gilead and others, and there's some who are doing it, you know, in other ways, so that there are many countries where people can be treated for hepatitis C for way, way less in this
I'm
country.
sure.
But since the United States is considered a high-income country, we are not eligible for these, even though this is the country where, you know, the cure was developed. And
And
many
it's
of
the
us
country
there,
that has the most cases.
yeah, well, there's a lot, 170, 180 million people around the world have hepatitis C.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
it's
excuse me.
huge. It's
Whoa.
huge.
Ouch.
And you know, we kept saying
wrap
that within this so-called high-income country, we still have many impoverished communities, many people who cannot afford this, who don't have insurance companies that are, many of them are not stepping
I'm
up
still
anyway.
I'm still rolling to the studio by homeless people in tents on the street.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
insane.
Absolutely.
The economic disparities. And Robin, I'm so sorry we're just about out of time, but
Okay,
I want
well-
to give you an opportunity in this last minute to share,
Okay.
share
Well,
whatever you need
I
to.
would like to direct people to the San Francisco Hepatitis C Task Force website, where they can find places where they can get tested and get treated. Go to www.sfhepc.org and find much more information. And people can go to 2424 Mission Street Monday through Saturday and get a free test. You can just, if you have a physician, you can just ask your physician. It's really important to be tested, treated, and cured.
Thank
You'll
you
feel
so
much better.
Robin Roth. And thank you, Jackie Perez. And
Thank
thank
you.
you, viewers, for tuning in to Freedom is a Constant Struggle. Be sure to go to Malcolm X Jazz Festival Saturday at San Antonio Park in Oakland. And it goes from 11 to 7. It should be great. All ages, everybody's welcome, and we'll celebrate our martyrs.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you so much for inviting me
my
here
pleasure.
and helping me spread the word.
And unfortunately, I have to announce that there's one more fatal shooting in San Francisco by a police officer of a 27-year-old woman. It's got to stop.
It's got to stop.